AI can't make art. And the reasonable move for this discussion, for my argument, would be to define art first. But, in liberal arts, nothing is ever defined. Ask a linguist what a word is and you'll be stuck for an hour. But still, I have spent 4 years of my life studying literature. 4 years on an absolutely useless major I went in knowing perfectly well that it will be useless. That's just how much I love literature, texts, words. So I really want to explain how art works using mostly literature. Truth be told, I am not an expert in any other art, especially not in visual arts, and I find it really hard to watch movies. But in essence, all arts are the same. So what I talk about in literature is the same for all the other arts. It's the same expression with different language. In art, every symbol, every movement, every part of it is a choice, consciously or even unconsciously, made by its author or its authors. I will talk a bit more about literature because it is specifically what I was obsessed with. Every word is a choice intentionally made by the author. And not just every word, but every punctuation mark and every sound that a written word will produce when you will be reading it in your hand. Those are all choices that consciously or unconsciously were made by its creator. Even if we compare sentences that have what seems to be like the same idea. Listen to this. Her mom hugged her. This is sentence number 1. And sentence number 2. Her mother embraced her. Don't you notice how different the feeling is based on what words we use despite them being synonymous? Now, something that was one of the most interesting parts of studying literature for me was the usage of sounds and their repetition. And of course I studied Russian literature, as you may hear through my accent. So as a fun experiment, I will read 2 sentences from one poem. They will be in Russian, and for you, the task is to decide which of the sentences mentions dry leaves. Ready? Sentence number 1. Если б так поэта измучила, он любимую на деньги бы славу выменял. Got it? Now, sentence number 2. Слов моих сухие листья ли, заставит остановиться, жадно дыша. Let's repeat. Если б так поэта измучило, он любимую на деньги бы славу выменял. Первый. First one, sorry. The second one. Слов моих сухие листья ли заставят остановиться, жадно дыша. Now, the second time I read them with very similar intonations. But what was your guess? If it was the second one, you are correct. Слов моих сухие листья ли заставят остановиться, жадно дыша. Do you hear how many sounds there are that are х, ш, s, t, ц? Those sounds invoke the association with dry leaves. So, besides what is said directly, there is also an indirect addition to the message through context, through what tools are used by the author to embody the idea they trying to make come to life. One of the reasons the enthusiast of AI art, quote unquote art, is that they use their creativity when making it. Just by typing in prompt, maybe a very intentional prompt, maybe they chose one picture out of 100, but it's their idea. But you see, everyone has creativity. There are a lot of people with incredibly creative ideas. Some of them have the same ideas that they just didn't turn to life. But the ability to make your idea come to life is one of the most valuable parts of specifically creating art. I think I plan to show on the screen 3 paintings. This is to make a point that even the same idea, the same scenario will be different, and it will give different messaging based on the intention and execution by its author. This is a scene from a Bible. Judith and Holofernes, specifically Judith beheading Holofernes. I don't think it matters why it's happening, but the scene is them getting Holofernes drunk. Them is Judith and her handmaiden. I think that's the word. And obviously beheading him. Now, the first painting I chose is Giorgio Vasari. That's the first time I read this name, but I used it anyway. It was the middle of 16th century. we can see that the painting has obviously unconscious Holofernes. He's not in any pain or suffering, neither is he bleeding or is already traumatized. Fun fact, at some point in history of art, painters, well, from Middle Ages, painted all scenes in the modern setting, modern to them. So they were wearing canonical clothes, which we can see in the painting I'm showing. Okay, so this was Judith and Holofernes. The next painting is by Caravaggio. It's Judith beheading Holofernes. It's the very end of 16th century. We can see that Judith now has already slain Holofernes. He is obviously suffering. It's painful. The blood is bright red. Notice how Judith seems to not use much of her strength. She looks kind of disgusted with the situation. The next one is one that I like the most, and it's by Artemisia Gentileschi. Judith slaying Holofernes, the beginning of 17th century. Look at the difference between Caravaggio's painting and Gentileschi painting. Here we can see that Holofernes was most likely alive. Colors are not as bright. Blood is rather dark. And now we see that Judith, as well as her maiden, her servant, use their strength to slay Holofernes. These are three paintings that explore the same idea, the same scenario, but all in different ways because of how they are executed, because of the way each element has been chosen. Okay, so far what we have had. In art, every part of it, every bit of it is intentional. That's what allows us to study it so thoroughly, because we can almost endlessly decipher the meanings and the intentions. Of course, some would be more correct, some would be less correct, but this is the riddle for us, people who studied art, is like a riddle you can solve to find out how it influences thoughts in your head. I guess that would be the description. Okay, so every bit is made with intention, Creativity is not limited to any single person, and idea, despite how creative it is not as valuable by itself without it being brought to life. Now, my next point is that apparently I had too much to talk about. Initially, I planned to record just like 8-10 minutes of talking, and it became much more than that, so maybe there will be part 2, or maybe they won't. Tell me if you want to hear about it, or tell me if you don't want to hear about anymore. And whether you agree or don't, I would appreciate feedback. Do you think I have explained my points well? Do they make sense to you? What are the arguments that I've missed? I know some of them that I would like to talk about next time, if there will be a next time, but I'm very interested in hearing about it.